Test, 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 1, 2, 3, test, test, test. Hi and welcome back to another video in the full network setup series, and this is episode number 6. And in this episode we're going to be adding a U6 Pro wireless access point to the UniFi network controller. So let's get started. But first let's run the video intro. Hi, as mentioned, we'll be adding a U6 Pro wireless access point to the UniFi network controller. But before we do that, let's go through what we're going to be doing and why. So if you look at the Word document I have on screen at the moment, you'll see that I've made a list of known devices which require Wi-Fi access. This being UniFi G4 doorbell, which can access both 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz Wi-Fi bands. We have a UniFi smart chime, which links into the G4 doorbell as the door chime for that, and that can access 2.4 GHz wireless bands. We have a Samsung Galaxy Android tablet A7, which can access 2.4 and 5 GHz Wi-Fi networks, and also a Realme 8 5G Android smartphone, which can also access 2.4 and 5 GHz Wi-Fi networks. And lastly, there's an Amazon Fire TV Stick 2020 edition, and that can access both 2.4 and 5 GHz Wi-Fi networks. So from the above, I can ascertain that I need to set up a 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi network with either a 20 MHz or 40 MHz channel width, so that both the G4 doorbell and smart chime can be connected on the same 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi network. I will also be setting up a 5 GHz Wi-Fi network with either an 80 MHz or 160 MHz channel width, so that all other known devices, including the Samsung tablet, Realme 8 phone and the Amazon Fire Stick, can be connected on the same 5 GHz Wi-Fi network. At a later date, I will be releasing another video where I will be showing you how to create a VLAN for the 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi network, and also another VLAN for the 5 GHz Wi-Fi network, so that all devices are isolated from the main wired only local area network, or LAN as you wish to call it. So for the Wi-Fi networks, I will be setting up 2 Wi-Fi networks with SSIDs, which are the station IDs as in the Wi-Fi network names, and these are going to be 10 GT-2 and 10 GT-5. 10 GT-2 being the 2.4 GHz of course, and 10 GT-5 being the 5 GHz network. Some people may say that it's better to set up a separate IoT wireless network and also a separate IoT VLAN for devices such as the doorbell and any wireless cameras, for example, and also any streaming media devices such as the Fire TV Stick should be on the IoT network. However, I personally, and this is my own opinion, see no point in doing this, as the Samsung Galaxy Android tablet and also the smartphone are both Android devices, and they do actually call back to home for various things, as do most devices nowadays. So I see no point in setting up a separate network. However, the 10 GT-2 network will just be for security devices, so that itself is actually a separate security network in the 2.4 GHz band anyway. So all of the devices will be connected to the 10 GT-5 network for smartphones and various tablets and things like that. So moving forward, let's get started and set up these networks. So as you'll see from here, I've already logged into my UniFi OS, and from there we need to select the square dotted icon from the top right side of the browser window, and then select network from the drop down menu that appears. Then this will take you into your UniFi network dashboard, and from there we need to select the donut icon, which is for UniFi devices, and that's the third icon down on the left hand side. So select that and you'll see that there's the U6 Pro, which has the status of click to adopt. So click to adopt, which will then bring up a pop-up menu at the right hand side. From there you'll need to select the button adopt device. So click that and wait for the device to be adopted. Now you'll see that the status for the U6 Pro is saying getting ready, and we'll just wait until it shows the status as online. Now that the status has changed to online, we will go to the right hand side pop-up menu and select Insight. Here you'll see further down on that pop-up menu there's the RF environment. Now here what we need to do is click Scan Channels, and then from the pop-up menu that appears in the centre of the screen, click Confirm, and then wait for the RF environment to finish the scan. The status, as you'll see at the moment, is saying last scan in progress. So wait for this to finish scanning, which can just take a few minutes to do. Now why are we doing an RF environment scan? Well, what this does is scan all of the Wi-Fi channels available in your area. It will scan for neighbouring wireless networks and provide you with a graph showing what channel numbers your neighbouring wireless networks are using. So what we need to do when the scan has been done is have a look at the graph, see if we can find a channel number that has the least colour in it, which means it's the least used wireless channel. Then we can proceed to set the wireless channel numbers in our UniFi network controller. Now whilst I've said that, the scan has actually finished, and it's actually under the RF environment of the 2.4 GHz band, which is highlighted in blue. So for the 2.4 GHz channel, we need to either select one of the 20 MHz channels or the 40 MHz channels, depending on which one has the lowest colour in its graph box. So as you'll see here, there's channel 3 and channel 8 and also channel 7, which seem to have the lowest, actually no colour in them at all. And if you hover over the channel graph for each channel number, you'll see that there is a utilisation percent. And here you'll see that these three channels, channel 7, 8 and 3, are all utilisation of 1%, as is channel 10, has a utilisation of 4%. So what we'll be doing is selecting, I think, channel 8 as our 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi network channel. Looking at the 40 MHz channels, they all seem to have about the same utilisation percent, at 10%. Yes, they all seem to have roughly 10% utilisation in them. So now we've selected the 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi channel, you then need to click on the 5 GHz icon in the list there, and it should change blue like it just has done here now. This will then show you the list of 20 MHz channels, 40 MHz channels, 80 MHz channels and 160 MHz channels. and their corresponding utilisation. So I could actually select, for example, channel 46, which has 0 utilisation, channel 54 and channel 62, which all have practically 0 utilisation in the 40 megahertz channel width, as does channel 118, 126. So for the 5 gigahertz, I will select channel 118 as a 40 megahertz channel width. So now that you've selected your Wi-Fi channels, you need to click on Settings. So from the top of the settings, you'll see that it has a name of U6 Pro, and I like to rename my devices, so I will call it WIAP01, as in Wireless Access Point 01. You can leave the Managed by Global AP settings ticked. What this will do is allow your wireless access point to be configured and set up using the settings cog icon, so that you can set all of your wireless access points globally. So I would leave that ticked. So you will also see that there's nightly channel optimization. I would recommend unticking this, which I have done already. And what this does is, if any of the wireless network channels become saturated, say in the evening, then your UniFi network controller will automatically switch the channel numbers for you. I prefer to keep the channel numbers static at all times, so I've already unticked that. So under radios, for the 2.4 gigahertz radio, we need to select the channel width as 20 megahertz, which is already selected here. And then for the channel number, we will set it to channel 8, as we've just chosen from the RF scan that we've done. Then under the transmit power, you can leave that to automatic. Minimum RSSI, you can leave that as unticked. And then under the 5 gigahertz radio, you can leave the channel width as 80 megahertz. And we will select channel 118, or the closest to it, which would be 120. And then under the transmit power, we'll leave that as auto. You'll see that I've selected channel 120, which is a DFS channel. However, I did previously choose 118 from the RF scan, but as that is not showing up in the list, I've selected 120, which is probably the nearest one to it. So then proceed down to band steering, and you can leave that as off. And then under the network, you'll see that it's selected DHCP. You can leave that as default. Moving down to LED, the LED is actually ticked, which means that the LED on the access point will actually be illuminated all the time. If you want to turn off the LED, you can actually untick that LED box if you prefer. So then under system, we don't need to change anything there, so we will then click apply changes. Just going back to the 5 gigahertz radio, you will see that there's a channel width of 80 megahertz. However, if you recall, I wanted to choose a 40 megahertz channel. As you are not able to select it in this option, we will change it in the settings option, which we'll be doing next. So now that we've applied the settings and the status is showing as online for the wireless access point, we can then proceed to close the pop-up window at the right hand side using the X. Then you will need to click on the settings cog or the gear icon. So click on the settings icon, which is the gear or the cog, and this will take you straight into your new Wi-Fi network configuration screen. So under the name, if you recall, we're going to be calling it 10 GT2 for the 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi network, and then in the password box you need to type in a password which will be used to access which will be used on your client devices to access the Wi-Fi network with. So type in as secure password as you can, and then under network, this will be greyed out, but it will be set to default. You can leave that as it is for the time being. Then under the advanced option, you need to select the manual button. Then, as we are setting up only a 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi network at the moment, you need to untick the 5 gigahertz under the Wi-Fi band option here. This will then only allow 2.4 gigahertz. Then under the Wi-Fi type, you can leave that as standard. Band steering is actually greyed out and enabled, so leave that as it is. Then under client device isolation, you need to leave that unticked. Proxy ARP should be unticked. BSS transition by default is ticked, so leave that as it is. UAP SD is unticked, leave that as it is. Fast roaming is also unticked, so leave that as it is. So scroll down to security, and then under the security protocol, tick WPA2. Then you will see that under your Wi-Fi screen now, as shown here, you'll see that it's created a 10 GT2 Wi-Fi network. So then you need to click Create New Wi-Fi. Then under the name, we're going to be calling it 10 GT-5, which is for our 5 gigahertz network. And the password, type in a password as you previously did, and which will be used to access your Wi-Fi network from your client devices. So type in a secure password as possible. Then under the advanced, select manual again, and this time under the Wi-Fi band you need to untick the 2.4 gigahertz so that we only set up a 5 gigahertz network. Then once you've unticked Wi-Fi band, you can scroll down to security and select WPA2, which should already be selected anyway, as the security protocol. Then you can click Add Wi-Fi Network. Then this will take you back to the list of Wi-Fi networks, and here you will see that we've now got 2 Wi-Fi networks. So if you recall a few moments ago, I wanted to set up channel 118 with a 40 megahertz bandwidth. However, I had to select 120 as the channel number with an 80 megahertz channel width. So here we will now set 40 megahertz channel width, and hopefully we should be able to select channel 118. So under global AP settings, you will see that there's a 2.4 gigahertz radio, and this is automatically selected as 20 megahertz channel width, which is okay. Then under 5 gigahertz radio, we need to move that down to 40 so that it has a 40 megahertz channel width. Then once you have done that, make sure that wireless connectivity and wireless meshing is unticked. I think by default it should be ticked, but as we will be only setting up one access point, we do not need meshing between other access points, so you can untick that box, which I've already done here, as you'll see. Then once we've done that, we can click Apply Changes. Then it says global AP settings were saved successfully. So once you've done that, you can then go back to the UniFi devices icon, which is the donut icon at the left hand side, and select the wireless access point. Then from the pop-up menu that appears at the right hand side again, select Settings, and then under the 5 GHz radio section, you'll see now that the channel width has changed from 80 MHz to 40 MHz. So now we should be able to select channel 118. Now we still can't. I think this is because it's an overlapping channel number, or that the channel numbers are not quite in sync on this drop down menu. So we will still select the nearest channel number, which is channel 120. As it's already selected as 120, we don't need to click save here, we can just click exit. So that completes setting up and adding a wireless access point into your UniFi network controller. Obviously in this video I haven't actually shown you me installing the wireless access point, but if you look back through my other videos in the full network setup series, you will actually see me mentioning about the wireless access point being mounted to the ceiling in the entrance hall. I did have to have assistance with cabling it. However, all that actually happened was the cable was being routed into the loft space and a hole was drilled in the plasterboard where the UniFi access point has been located, and then the cable was run across into the loft and into the back of my network cabinet. I didn't actually mount the mounting plate for the access point with screws. I actually decided to fix it to the ceiling with one of the strong adhesives. In this case I used a similar thing to no nails, and it has actually worked well, and the access point is mounted to the ceiling that way. I thought it was much easier than actually drilling holes. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Keep a lookout for further videos in the series, and thanks for watching and take care of yourselves. Bye for now.